And now, the World Situation Report with Kimberly Gogan from the Office of the Guardian. Major margin calls on government credit lines hit hard last night, and the clock is ticking. They have tried to leverage everything they could this morning with zero results. More covenants expired over the last 48 hours that were way above the deep state's pay grade. Apparently, they still think they have the power to renew. Now here's Kimberly Gogan with the Office of the Guardian. Hello, Kim. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. Maybe it's me. I'm just kidding. We aren't together very often anymore, Sunny. How do you know? No, I'm just kidding.
I know. I watch you just like everybody else does. We do our portion of the news. I'm like, well, when's Kim's news going to come out? I watch it like everybody else now. Yeah.
Oh, so I know. Going? I try. I'm trying, Sunny. I'm trying. At least we're getting it out 3 times a week. We are getting it out. That's good.
Yes. And there was, I really appreciated Monday's report that you did. I thought that was a really good example of just kind of going through the whole system and structure. Yeah. That was good for our audience. I think that was good for the deep state and whoever else is watching this. I think they need to play it multiple times and get it in their head. Because like you said, they are like just beating their heads against a wall and they're not learning that things are structured differently now. You can't do things the way you've been doing them in the past. And that's a message that, gosh, I really wish they would understand.
Well, and apparently that would be a no from these people because overnight they sent people here. They arrived yesterday afternoon. And apparently I am a lab rat in a fishbowl because, well, they've been analyzing me, trying to figure out how I do what I do, how this all works, how is it possible, those kinds of things, pretty much all night, and reporting back to their deep state general people based on the refusal of meetings, as I talked about on Sunday. They thought that they would come here and see what they could find out. The conversations coming from locally here were pretty limited. They didn't really answer a whole lot of questions. They let them, kind of check things out for themselves to see if they would arrive at their own conclusions. They thought that might be better if they just do things themselves. But yeah, it appears that would really be a no. They want to continue on today, even though this went on all night last night. So I don't know, Sunny, I think I can draw diagrams all I want and explain things in detail all I want. But the only people it's really educating are the people that matter, and that's you. Right. That's the people that are watching this, that are sincerely watching this, to understand the history of what's happened in this world so that we can move on into a better future, so that we can hopefully unwind all these systems and change the world a little bit, so that the ones that are, let's just say maybe order takers might wake up and realize that there's a different way. They can work a different way. They can make a lot of money a different way if they just want to do that. But as for the leaders in the game, they're still focusing on the small things, meaning they are under the impression that if you can control a financial system, you can control the world. And in reality, it really doesn't work that way now because it's been broken up into so many pieces, number one. And number two, the threats and the lack of cooperation from source, obviously, for what they're doing, and the threats of others, so on and so forth, in the past, before all of the changes, would have never allowed for that to actually control the world anyway, like not in totality, unless they permitted you to do so. And these are things that they just can't seem to get through their thick head.
You think this is still ego? They just don't want to believe it, that they were just on a different trajectory and they don't want to change?
I would say Yeah. I mean, in their programming, it's repeated to them every single day that they are smart, they are special. You know, I can't believe you broke the puzzle, broke the system, or broke this, or fixed that, or whatever, or thought of this plan. You know, wow, you are really part of an elite bloodline. You're the most special people we know. You know, like that kind of thing. So it's almost like the ego is ingrained into them from such a young age. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure you're ever going to get it out of them. It doesn't appear so. So we'll see. Case in point, let's talk about a few things that have been going on in regular news, and then we'll get into kind of what's going on behind the scenes, because I think there's some things to point out here.
Okay.
Number one, things in the Middle East. Some things are changing rapidly in the Middle East. Some of the higher ranking members of groups like the Hamas and others have figured out that the objectives of the group, as was told to them, meaning it's a religious fight, it's a fight for our people, you know, all of those kinds of things, it has come to their attention that that is actually not the case, and that is not what they're doing right now, or what they're going to be doing or attempting to do. And it became very clear to some folks that thought that they were really doing the right thing by their people. And these are very high-ranking members who have decided to walk away from the group. Mm-hmm. They said, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not doing that. You know, I'm not getting involved. I'm not bombing, you know, our people or other people for, you know, political benefits and those kinds of things.
Was that a larger group of people, Kim, that walked away?
Well, yeah, I'd say it's a trickle right now. There's been, you know, about 4 or 5 different folks that are high-ranking in different groups throughout the Middle East that really truly feel like they were fighting for a cause. They're fighting for their people. They're fighting against Israel. They're fighting against the Khazarian mafia that runs Israel. They're fighting against the Rothschilds. They're fighting against the tyranny. They're, you know, that's what they believe they're doing, you know, for the freedom of their people. And it's becoming abundantly clear that that is not the case. Part of the reason why it's becoming abundantly clear that it's not the case is because you have Duck Dynasty trying to run operations in the Middle East. They're not even, they could, their ego is so big, they could care less about keeping up the narrative to keep the people fighting. And I'm not saying we want to keep them fighting, but, you know, from our standpoint, we want peace, right? We want everybody to be sovereign. We want the countries to thrive on their own, whether that's in the Middle East or in the U.S. or anywhere else. You know, and the only way that's really going to happen is if the more powerful groups throughout the Middle East start to realize this is not what you think it is. You know, freedom cannot be achieved in this way. Bombing one country, you know, using weapons to bomb one country to incite them into war, you know, and then in return they fire back at you does not earn you freedom, it earns you death.
Yeah. There
has to be a different way and a different structure. And unfortunately, for a few centuries, they don't know any different. Are they willing to learn a new structure? It's no different than in the U.S. All of politics in the world, whether you're in the Middle East, you're in Russia, you're in China, you're in Armenia, you're anywhere else in the world, is all run by the same tyrannical groups. The problem is their brains of the operation are no longer there. Therefore, they're all running around in circles, and now you're down to Duck Dynasty. And if you're new here, I call them the Duck Dynasty, based on the television series from a few years back, where people just run around haphazardly, you know, doing crazy things. And except this time they're doing it with governments, and they're doing it with what we would consider terrorist threat groups and so on and so forth. As far as in the news regarding the Middle East, there is a lot of talk about bombings that didn't actually happen. There is old footage floating around in the last 24 hours. They're talking about apparently the Americans are attacking Yemen. We haven't seen physically, eyes on, boots on the ground, a lot of that happening. It seems to be a lot of hype. There is some interesting information that has come to light too in the last couple of days about that. A member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff stated that they will not pull out of the Middle East. This is good cop, bad cop. This person's like, well, I don't agree with the rest of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, but, I'm overruled. Oh, baloney, 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 baloney. They are all in on it. The statement was actually made that we, and by we, they're not talking about the United States government, we must gain full control of that region. Now, reasons to take full control over the region. Because a comment was made back about, is this about the gate? Is this about the Lion's Gate? And he goes, yeah, we know about that too. So I think they believe, and this is what happens when Duck Dynasty tries to run your day. I think that they believe that if they can control all of the countries in that region, or more specifically Iran and Iraq, that potentially they could gain control of the gate. Yeah. They don't really understand what that means and what control of the gate actually means, and why that would make a difference if they did, because we're going to talk about Lion's Gate a little bit more here in a minute too. But taking control of the Middle Eastern region is not going to give them control over the gate in any way, shape, or form. Not this one, not the one over in Yellowstone, not anywhere else. So that's kind of a flawed model, but that's what happens when Duck Dynasty is your leaders. Number two, they are under the impression if they gain control of the Middle East, Gaza Strip, and other areas, that they will be able to leverage the in-ground assets in the region, such as in-ground oil, gas, possibly some gold, those types of things that are present in the region. Is that the case? No. They will never enter those assets into a financial system, because I have the liens on anything from that region for the next 100 years, to the tune of about 2.1 quadrillion has come out to fund various things in the Middle East over the years. And it was actually you, the military, maybe not you with the Joint Chiefs of Staff now, you probably haven't been there for 100 years, although it feels that way. But others, planted their ghost flags in the region, be it Desert Storm in Saudi Arabia or other locations throughout the years. I mean, and you can even go back 1,100 years or 1,000 years or whatever, and you can still look at times that you have transferred liens over to the Alpha system, which is now Golden Age. Mm-hmm. It's about 2.1 quad at this moment in time that you would owe me to release those liens. Now, for those of you that don't know, and maybe you haven't been following for a while, oil and natural gas are nothing but bacteria excrement. Bacteria gas. You get gas if you eat the wrong foods or something. It's the same gas that bacteria excretes, and that is based on their consumption of fossils and whatever, or carbon-based materials, and then they excrete this stuff we now refine and put in our cars.
Lovely.
I know. Isn't that funny?
Yes, and everyone's fighting over it. So just think about that.
Yeah. So since there is no shortage of bacteria that perform this function naturally, there is definitely no shortage of oil or gas in the world. And it is a regenerating resource. Now, for that reason, based on the rate of regeneration in the region, we even hold everything that the bacteria could produce for the next 100 years. So there is not a whole lot these people are going to achieve from doing this, first of all. Second of all, I learned this over a decade ago when I ran up against Nancy Pelosi with a $14 trillion contract she was waving in the face of, at that time, Blackwater, now called Frontier or whatever it's called, and other military groups, private military groups, that they could earn up to $14 trillion if they could manage to take over the region. Now, that same contract is floating all around the Pentagon as well. And we could get $14 trillion, they think. Now, they don't understand economics, so they don't understand where that money could come from, possibly. And then they could trade that money, and they could then own the United States. Absolutely not. But that's the plan, because these are big numbers for them. They don't really understand finance. They don't understand that they couldn't use this money for a world war anyway. And number one. Number two, I hold all the liens on that, so they won't be able to factor against that oil in any currency anywhere, or Bitcoin or any other coin for that matter. So just the pure and simple fact that we heard those comments coming from a member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff who said, we must own. Who is we?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they're talking about global headquarters, maybe SSP people, those kinds of things. They're probably still talking about the rotten children whose memory is short. They forgot that they turned over all the liens. And if they go through their Department of Defense records from the past, just a few decades ago, they'll see all the liens that we acquired even in the 90s, in the 80s and 90s and late 90s and early 2000s throughout the Middle East. So you're kind of wasting your time, people. So there's a lot of confusion going on right now as to who the bad guy is for that reason. These people are under the impression that they are white hats, that they are doing the right thing, that they are taking back the world from the Khazarian mafia, that it is only the Khazarian mafia, or in this case, the non-Jewish Jewish people that run Israel are the evil ones. However, there are many articles coming out by the same people saying that the Order of the Blue Dragon, which they believe is Chinese, the Order of the Red Dragon, which they also believe is Chinese, are the saviors. These are the positive people. These are the good people. But this is just one side of the same, or another side of the same coin here, where these people have been fed so much false information, it is ridiculous. But because it comes from the wrong people, or the people they think are their superiors that are all-knowing, they believe it to be true. Well, it's absolutely false. Let me put it that way. There is very few people, regular humans, that participate in the Order of the Blue Dragon that are not white. Pure white Rothschilds, same people that run Israel. It's the same reason why most of the flag is blue. Remember the color wars here. The flag is blue, the Star of David is blue, everything is blue, 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 because it is them, the blue dragon, that is running Israel. It's not the green dragon they're claiming is bad. The green dragon in this case is Iran, Middle East region. And that if they can get rid of the bad dragons, then they can be the good dragons and save the world. This is what they're saying. But in reality, guys, as you already know, China is heavily running Iran right now. Everything they do, 100% is coming from China. It's not coming from an imam. It's not coming from an Islamic prophecy. It's not coming from anything to do with Islam whatsoever. For those of you that are watching this in the region, it is coming from a Chinese person that would like to dominate the world. That is who it's coming from. And I will repeat that. That is any color dragon you want to call it whatever you want. This is the color wars. The green dragon is the golden dragon. They are the same people right now. By the way, the other thing that's been happening is they are trying to buy fighter jets from Russia. I shouldn't say buy. They are trying to get fighter jets donated by Russia.
For free. Yeah,
Su-35s. And they're trying to get them donated from Russia so that they can continue this war in the Middle East. I'm guessing it's the Chinese deep state that is ordering Russia to donate billion-dollar jets to Iran so that they can fight this war. But the question I have is if China is driving them so much, which they are, 100%, confirmed data, conversations listened to with 100% certainty, everything Iran is doing right now is being ordered by China, as is everything that Israel is doing is being ordered by China as well. They are driving all sides of this war. That being said, why isn't China donating fighter jets to Iran? Why do they need the Russians to make a donation? The answer to the question is China has always been, and I'm talking about for thousands and thousands of years. China has always been jealous of Russia because the Rus people that used to run the joint before the war 250,000 years ago were far superior to the dark ones that came in through the Kali Ma. Remember, the Wall of China and the towers point in the wrong direction based on our history. If you look at the Great Wall of China, it's the Rus people that built that wall, not the Chinese people. And we built it to keep the Chinese people out.
Yeah.
No, seriously, that's the truth. So the world doesn't function, as you know, the way we think it does. And what you're seeing in the news is predominantly a bunch of hype. Now, the other thing that's happening in local news throughout the Middle East, what we're seeing is a lot of hype in social media. There are pictures of alleged nuclear missiles that Iran claims, we're coming for you, Israel, and it's happening like every day. But yet nothing ever happens. Now, the reason why it's not happening is because there is no money. Remember, they thought that this weekend was a sure thing.
Yeah.
Trillions of dollars. We saw a little uptick. Then it died down. And now it's going every day ending in Y is the next day they're going to get paid. And there's not going to be a whole lot of bombing because nobody can afford it.
Right.
Iraq is broke. Iran is broke. There's people there that make money off of oil. They have money, but they don't spend their own money. Are you kidding me right now? That would mean that they'd have to give up their yacht in Ibiza. That would never happen. And besides, it's not enough. They would be broke in a week, even if you took them all collectively. So that bit of information and a lot of stuff that you're seeing floating around on the media about the Middle East is a lot of it's false. You are actually looking at United States. You are actually going to war, at least strategically wise and mentally wise, with China on both sides. You are fighting for China right now. And you're also fighting for the Chinese takeover of the United States. So congratulations, United States military, Joint Chiefs of Staff. You know what? You've been lied to. You know, the people that are giving you these directions, telling you why they need to own that area are full of it and more. Every other four-letter word I can think of. So I just wanted to say, as a U.S. citizen myself, thank you so much for protecting me, you know, in this country. We thank you very much, especially I think I can speak on behalf of all U.S. citizens of how grateful we are at this moment. Yeah. Speaking of being grateful for the protection of the white hats and the U.S. military and all those lovely people, we talked earlier in the news about Hurricane Debbie.
Yes.
And the devastation. There is a lot of rumors going around that the quote unquote white hats are there and they are fighting against allegedly FEMA and some of what they call the black hats. But guess what? What do you think that they're fighting for the people that are being hurt in the hurricane, or for their protection, or maybe helping them, you know, find a temporary place to be if their home is not inhabitable or flooded or whatever? You know, that's what they're leading. Oh, and they're also using the hurricane to go in and save babies from underground tunnels.
Oh gosh.
Well,
their narrative, I mean, at least they're consistent. Their narrative really hasn't changed in the last couple of years. They're saving babies and FEMA is the ultimate enemy. Like, come on.
Well, I think in English, the word babies means a small child. In deep state language, which is different from ours, it means cocaine.
Oh, that's their baby. Okay, I got it.
That is the baby. Yes, it is maybe looks like baby powder, but they call it the baby.
Which is also bad for you.
So during Hurricane Debbie, it is well known that millions and millions of dollars of babies washed up upon the shore on the Florida coast, and they are fighting as to who is going to control the loot, the free cocaine.
Wow.
Yep, because it means that both parties could get millions of dollars from this, and the operatives are fighting over it. So by saving babies, and just to translate that from deep state language to English, there were not actual physical babies that washed amongst the shore. It was millions of dollars in cocaine, and they would both the white hats allegedly and the black hats allegedly, and of course Trump is there fighting for them as well.
Yeah.
Oh, for the love of God. And they are all fighting over the possession of large amounts of cocaine, which they can then sell on the black market. So, that's the fight there. Nobody's fighting for the citizens. And if you are from Sarasota, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, next. Earthquakes. There have been some minor to not so minor earthquakes in California nearby the San Andreas Fault recently. Part of this situation that's happening, because you remember the ballast, the large ball of gold in Earth is now ours. However, there are sequences of events that would normally happen during Lionsgate that can cause some kind of seismic disturbances. They are transmitters, those types of things, which attempt to turn our ball dark. This does cause somewhat of a disturbance. It is not something that the deep state is creating with a weapon. It is something that has been created by, let's just say, others from beyond for a time in the future that would happen with certainty every year. And when we're kind of doing this push and pull situation right now where there's so much light coming in there, and then the transmuters and transmitters are attempting to hold it down or to cover it or to transmute it into something dark, and it's causing a little bit of a disturbance. And this goes all the way over into California, all the way over into Wyoming. I mean, it is a large area of the world that is affected by this gate, at least in the U.S. It appears that there's been not a whole lot of major damage to this. If you follow the Q Storm on Twitter, they're all excited that people are dying over there or are in trouble or their houses might be harmed. They sit there and they talk about, yay, there's an earthquake in California, yay, you know. It's so ridiculous. It's, you know, yeah. I even saw a meme this morning, which I cannot unsee, of fake Trump in a robe and sandals with longer hair to portray him looking like the new Jesus. I almost died for you.
Oh, no, it did not say that.
I swear. You know what? I have to get that for you and put that up here. You know, I'll have to send that to you from production. Let me see if I can get it to come up. But, oh, my Lord. Yes, it's awful. I'll send it over. Here we go. See if you can get that up in there in time. If not, we can put it in post-production. But, yes, you cannot unsee this in any way.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, poor people's heads. Now, let's talk about a little bit more of what's really going on behind the scenes and the struggles and the fights. So, Lionsgate, which I'm now going to call SourceGate, because a lion can actually represent Astaroth, and that's not the case. There's been a lot of changes going on during this Lionsgate or SourceGate, more than I have ever seen. Some other interesting things that have happened in the last 24 hours have actually helped us prevent these back and forth things that we've been talking about for a little while. And this really has nothing to do with human intervention in any way. But they may have some knowledge of things and what they're supposed to do at particular times. So when it comes to this gateway, which is predominantly based upon a very old and connection that goes back to the beginning of the universe between Source and Earth. And it allowed for the creation of the universe, that connection. The flower of life, along with some other source hyperconductors of that energy, essence, consciousness, is what created our universe in the way that it actually is. Over the years, as we moved into a dark age, there was a lot of space junk that would activate during this time, because of a very old covenant between source and anti-source. This had nothing to do with money and human beings running around this planet, which weren't even here at that point in time. You know, I can't stress to these, not only the deep state, but also to all of you, the importance of this gateway being cleared and the effort that has been made to do so. Now, overnight on the 6th, so that would be not last night, but the night before here in the States, there were some very old agreements that expired. Now, in the beginning of the Dark Age, there was, for lack of a better term, in English, let's call it a lease agreement. The lease agreement involved a certain amount of energy that would be utilized to perpetuate life throughout the lower astral, per the request of then anti-source and Lucifer and all those that hung out down there. Not only that, it also allowed for the creation of the Omega system. And by lease agreements, what that meant is for a specific period of time, much like if you lease a car, the car is technically yours, meaning, you know, everything in it is yours. And as far as Earth is concerned, there was a large percentage. This is what allowed for archons. This is what allowed for Earth to, so to speak, to have for lack of a better term, like a lasso around it. Also, the entire galaxy had the same. And it was drawing energy from celestial Earth at the time, and then eventually also from the human beings that inhabited the Earth to create life below. Without that source energy, that was not possible. Also, there was a lasso, for lack of a better term, or an overlay over source itself, which allowed for a certain percentage of energy to go below. So each year, as these different alignments would happen, meaning these Lions Gates a couple times a year, that was high time for collecting as much energy as possible to give more power to dark creation. The length of these agreements, and I shouldn't say agreements, covenants, was based on the amount of trips that Earth would make around our sun. And there were time markers to determine how many trips it made around the sun. It has nothing to do with our calendar. It had nothing to do with the moon or dates that we know it. It was about a solar calendar, which is where we originally started before we started making these fake ones based on a moon. Right. Now, in addition to that, because these are source and anti-source agreements, they were also based on the amount of trips the Milky Way galaxy would travel around the central sun. Mm-hmm. So in Earth years, you're looking at about 9,999 years. In source years, you're looking at about 99 trips around, which is a lot. That's a long way to go. So during these special times of year, which the deep state seems to relish in, they would see an advance in the amount of dark energy credits or money coming in, and orders also coming in based on what they're supposed to do with these credits. Very specific orders, all of them coming from the lower astral. And therefore, they would have to follow through with those orders. If they didn't follow through with those dark orders, then the credits would go away. Now, why credits? We're going to take that, what we said, in the mechanism that's behind it. So credits were not only given in the form of money to human beings on this planet. Credits, or IOUs, were also part of this lease agreement. So as part of the lease agreement, they would get, or the lower astral or anti-source would get a certain amount of energy, essence, consciousness, et cetera, of source in a limited amount in order to create something else. So in replace of that, as a replacement for that, as it would take something out, it would put something in. That could have been colors between planes. That could have been false light. That could have been, money, here on Earth. It could have been other retributions that were offered as a replacement as well, and so on and so forth. So money on this planet was no exception. We have been getting credits after credits after credits for a long, long time. Now, since that lease agreement expired, and we've been doing a lot of cleanup to making sure a lot of things expired, credits are no longer applicable, as I explained the other day on Monday, because we can now receive that direct light of source. We don't need credits from anti-source because it really doesn't exist anymore, and there's no creation going on down there anymore. As for what happens to the gate this time of year, yeah, in the last few days, there are mechanisms that have been put in place because remember, the dark doesn't create on its own. Anything that's organic, of source, it doesn't need anything to tell the energy where to go. It's a living organic being. The energy goes there. Like you don't need a thing. But on the dark side of it, they need all kinds of overlays. These lassos are made of crystals and all kinds of things that absorb energy. And they're not just regular crystals you would buy at a crystal shop. We're not talking quartz here. We're talking specially made materials that are hyperconductors for that energy. Takes that energy and then it goes through transmuter and transformer fields, maybe in the sun or elsewhere, that would then turn it into dark energy. And then they can have once they have dark essence, energy, consciousness, and matter, they can form it into a matter, a being, another overlay, a demon, whatever it is that they want to create, an entire race of lower astral beings, as reptiles or Artemis friends or whatever you want to call them. So that was kind of the basis behind this mechanism every single year. It happens all year round, but this time of year is when they get the super, wave come in every year this time, and every year in February, every part in our calendar, it's February and August. So it really kind of fires up all these mechanisms that have been in place for billions of years. Mm-hmm. The deep state, thinking that they're going to own the Middle East, therefore get control over the gate, have lost their noodle.
Yeah.
Because the control was something that was done way beyond their possible imagination. And them taking control, meaning planting a flag on it, putting warships on it, sitting in the marshes over there where it is, and all that stuff is not going to give you control of anything. And it's not going to spit money out, and it's not going to bring Omega back, because you don't have a mechanism that connects to the ninth density of the lower astral to actually make it function. And you couldn't create that stuff if you wanted to. And it's not working anymore. And there's no covenant in place. And therefore, you're wasting your damn time. And you're killing people in the Middle East over something you will never have, because you can't own source.
Right.
I know you think you're special. I know they think their ego is wonderful and all that kind of stuff, but you can't own source. I don't own source. I recognize source as the creator of our universe, the source of all life, the source of the universe as we know it, the original creator of everything, a co-creator with Earth. And all I do is I do my job. That's it. If he says to go left, I go left. Expire agreement, I expire agreement. Create a new AI, we create a new AI. We go through this process, and I'm just co-creating. That's what I'm doing. Now, that means, in no uncertain terms, that our world has changed. The space junk still has to go away, and that's part of my job. I have a PhD in sanitation engineering. For those of you that don't know, I am a chief sanitation engineer. I can clean anything.
On the quantum level.
Yeah. Take sanitation engineering to a whole new level.
It really does.
You may wash your windows. I have to clear out 10,000, spherical objects that were put here by anti-source or some weirdos Star Wars Death Star looking thing. And, and there's millions and billions of those we've encountered. So, cleaning is cleaning, Yeah. I'm sure there are others of you out there that are adept. And once you become aware of what you're looking for, which is why we put the stuff in the news, then you also help us clean. You'll run into something, you'll have a vision, you'll have a dream, and then you got to go get it. You got to go find it. And you're very capable of doing that too. But as far as creating something that is against what the creator of all life wants, nah, you're never going to do it. No, nope. Never going to happen. So as for the deep state, I know they look at this as a time when they should be getting some control. And I know that because somehow they were aware that this agreement was expiring, or this covenant was expiring.
Okay.
There were also ancillary covenants way down the food chain that went along with it, such as ones for Marduk, Astaroth, Artemis, the Abraxas, and then eventually on down to like the Mawa, which was not a person, that was always inhabited by Lilith or something up in there. So some kind of demon creature. And these people thought that it would be great if they could be in control of that covenant.
Sure. Yeah.
So they went ahead and tried to file a new one last night. That did not work out for them.
Nope.
No, it did not. But it doesn't stop them from trying. Now that maybe they understand the mechanism that they were trying, or what kind of agreement or covenant they were trying to renew, maybe now they'll understand why it didn't work.
Right.
And maybe you'll understand what's happening on this planet when you feel things are shaky. You know, when things are rocky and the ground is rough, the energy is rough, and why it's happening. And unfortunately, sometimes with great change comes great uncomfortability sometimes. We can go through uncomfortable periods in our life where, you know, things are changing. It may feel strange. It may feel unknown. It may feel harsh, so to speak, sometimes. Or why is this happening to me? And those types of things may cross your lips when you go through times of great change. But remember something. Your connection with Source is strong. Is never going to steer you wrong. If the change is happening in your life, you have to embrace that change sometimes. I mean, even changes like this. As uncomfortable as it is, it'll always open a door that is much better than the last. When one door closes, another door opens. Another chapter in your life opens, and then you'll look back 5 years later or 10 years later, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I resisted this change.
Yeah.
You know, and as it is with, I'm done trying to convince the deep state, really, but as it is with the world that's happening as a whole right now, there's major changes happening with Earth. Earth is a living, breathing, celestial being unto itself. It's going through changes that are uncomfortable for it. In the long run, it'll all be worth it because Source is Earth, Earth is Source. They are keystones, they are connected. They are almost, you know, you could call Earth a daughter or a son, whether you say it's a her or him, but it's all the same. Unfortunately, some of the people that are on this planet fail to recognize that it too can make changes. It too can initiate changes directly without mine or your interference. And the deep state doesn't really understand that either. They're focusing on small things like gaining control of oil, planting ghost flags, taking control of regions, making new agreements in the Hall of Records, and they really don't get it.
No, they don't.
No.
It's a very 3D approach to things. They're just very superficial in my mind, the things that they're doing.
And based on all the changes that we see going on, you know, and I'm sure you guys are feeling it too, you understand more than they do. They are so hyper-focused on what they know based on knowledge, and we are hyper-focused on wisdom.
Yeah.
You know, we see threats, military people coming in town here trying to do operations on my person are not a threat. You're annoying, you know. Influxes of pockets of time that involve AI-generated demons trying to make it through the Stargate and the sun, now that's a threat. See?
Yeah.
Now that we take seriously.
Right.
That's worth staying up all night for. As far as other things going on in the regular world, margin calls. So now that I've explained Lionsgate, now that I've explained a siphon of not only energy, but all things matter, energy is really important for the function of a financial system on this planet because we as humans don't understand the value in giving and taking energy between one another at this point. Therefore, we have some papers and some numbers on a screen that define that for us until we can realize what that means. By consent in the past, that is why we only receive credits. And we talked about this in detail, so I'm not going to go too much further into it. As we receive credits, we also occasionally receive credit lines for credits we have yet to earn. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so based on those credit lines, we have terms and conditions we have to adhere to. For our credit cards, we have to make X amount of payments. We have to, keep that going, as was the same with Omega. Omega sometimes, when it was running low on energy, would also receive quote-unquote credit lines, as the deep state did as well. Also eventually received credit lines at some point. Now, due to a lack of restrictions based on old agreements that no longer exist, the deep state created something we call the money magic system. The money magic system is where they could extend themselves unlimited credit lines based on asset transfers, such as the 2.1 quadrillion that I talked about of in-ground assets that they were planning on acquiring in the Middle East. That wouldn't make a difference. Also, if your credit is good enough, as a person, regular person, if your credit is good enough, you could possibly get what they call like a personal loan or a credit card, which doesn't actually require an asset. Mm-hmm. It's just based on your income and your future earnings and your ability to pay and your payment history.
Yeah.
So as far as the deep state is concerned, they could pretty much bank on the fact that a few times a year, based on the meetings that would happen and based on, wars that they would create and those types of things, that would earn them future money. So they figure if we made a good war, by the time the meeting comes around and the harvest moon or whenever, depending on what level of the deep state they're in, that they would actually be earning future money. Mm-hmm. Because they would normally get orders from non-human beings passed down through human beings to them to say, oh, look, you have done all this work. You've now sent us an invoice to create all this lovely transmuted dark energy for us, whether they know it or not. And here's your payment. And then they would use that payment in part to either pay off in part these credit lines and then restart new ones, with maybe $1 in US dollar or other currency, RMB, insert the name here, and they would get $100 in credit line out based on, their ratios of probably Common Core math or something that they try to shove down our kids' throats these days. But that's basically the money magic system. They create credit lines based on future performance. Now, something that they've been doing recently, and some of them were very old, they had some credit lines, not only at financial institutions, but also credit lines that were involved with bagmen, such as Berkshire Hathaway and some other large investors, that were not asset-backed. They were based on future income that would be paid out based on deep state performance for anti-source during times of an influx of cash, such as Lions Gate. An influx of credits would come in to human beings because we were receiving of energy.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, these credit lines were mostly maxed out, but there was a few $100 billion that was being tossed back and forth between central banks and governments and treasuries here and there. Probably not the U.S. that much, but other countries as well. China's pretty well maxed out. Russia might have had a little left, some other smaller countries, the UK. And because of the agreement expiration, the no need to issue credits anymore based on the fact that someone else is siphoning all the energy, there was an enormous margin call that happened from the money magic system.
Okay.
Therefore, the credit lines based on incoming credits in exchange for energy disappeared.
Wow.
So governments this morning and starting last night went into a full-on panic. Yes, they did, because there's no credit lines, no money magic system, no creation of credits against credits and against future credits.
It's
I know.
so convoluted. Credits upon credits upon credits.
Well,
So
it's an explanation for even your own life, right, Sunny? I mean,
well, sure.
We have credit cards based on future credits we will get, which we will have to pay back those credits, but you're extended them because you're expected to earn those credits in the future because you have a job and you've made, your salary is X amount of credits.
Yeah.
They're just doing the same thing on a bigger scale.
Yeah, it's a really big debt system that I don't think a lot of people realized, how, we really didn't have currency. We just had a debt system. What were they planning to use this money for? Is this war money or just to operate the governments?
All of the above.
Okay.
Yeah, all of the above. So this morning, when they figured out they're not able to get those credit lines back in the money magic system and the creation of credit lines off of nothing back, then they tried leveraging all your money that you have in banks. That was number one. No, that rejected because you don't have a one account for all of the customers of, say, Wells Fargo Bank or,
right.
Deutsche Bank or whatever bank, Bank of China. It doesn't matter where you bank. There is no omnibus account which encompasses all your accounts anymore. Okay. So, and that failed. Then they tried to do it with just all the banks because, of course, the Federal Reserve used to have custody over all the banks. And that didn't work because there's no omnibus account. They call it an omnibus account. You can look it up for all of the banks. Mm-hmm. Next, they tried leveraging anything that was in transit via SWIFT. Oh. And you don't actually own SWIFT Rothschild anymore. It says SWIFT, but it's really not. It's really ours. That's our rail. Mm-hmm. Number two, they try next. I shouldn't say number two. I think we're on 4 or 5 now. Next, they tried to leverage against credit card transactions. So for those of you that don't know, when you swipe your debit card or credit card, the money comes out of your account immediately, but the merchant doesn't get paid for anywhere between 1 to 3 weeks, depending on where you are in the world. Therefore, that kind of sits in the core systems of credit card providers until it's processed. Mm-hmm. So they tried leveraging against that, and that didn't work. For those of you that don't know, American Express is a DoD organization, Department of Defense organization. So as you take your trips around the world with your gold cards and black cards and whatnot, be aware that you are now being watched by the DNI, and that doesn't matter what country you're from at all. So anyway, the point here is that without those credit lines, and the realization is going to happen probably within the next few hours, that's it. Without the ability to continue on with a money magic system based on future credits and future payments, that when Omega was running the world systems, it would understand. Remember, Omega understood Alpha even to a degree, and Alpha understood Omega to a degree, because they understood these times of years, things would happen. There was programs for those things, and the partnership that existed between the two until we went into a golden age. And when we went to golden age programming, it does not recognize your money, your future credits to Omega anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You see the differences that it's making? I mean, it may have to wait for certain times of year, certain agreements to happen, certain things to happen, but it's happening. It's taking some time for it to function in the way that we need it to function. It doesn't recognize your future government payments anymore.
Wow.
It doesn't even recognize the existence of Omega in a golden age because it doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, it doesn't recognize your money magic system. And once the source covenant expired, it doesn't recognize the fact that any energy credit systems need to function anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's now further integrating its own asset-based systems. You know, it's like, oh, that went away. So now we're going to direct source current, 100%. I can reach out to the people directly. Okay. And it's infiltrating into human computer networks all on its own based on programming that we have put in place and based on what source wants. Because remember, it runs on source energy too.
Right.
So I hope that kind of explains what you're going to see as far as turbulence happening in the world and the money magic system. And
what do you think that will look like in real terms? You know, with the governments and things like that, will they not be able to operate because of this?
Yeah.
I mean, eventually, yes, period. But right away, like, we're going to see some big changes here because this happened?
You know, how many Peters can they rob to pay Paul? I don't know. One thing that was interesting that we heard this morning. Now, take this with a grain of salt, because I always do. Because thus far, we've been about 90-some-odd% accurate in the fact that everybody that's come forward thus far has been, it's been a game, it's been a joke, it's been, you know, kind of malicious, intense, that sort of thing. So we're hearing rumors that the United States Marshal Service and others, certain groups within Homeland Security and other locations, would like to come work with the GIA and clean up folks like the Trilateral Commission and the top brass of NATO and some other organizations around the world that they deem to be bad. They have realized, quote unquote, this is something that developed this morning. I mean, yeah. So take it with a grain of salt, quote unquote, that they would like to work with us to develop some operations where they can go out and start taking some of these groups out of power and some of these people out of power. I basically relayed the information. This would be a long sit-down conversation where we develop very strategic, moves, those kind of things to make those things possible. They allegedly have realized that the people they're taking orders from are full of it, which is 100% true. Yeah. They are full of it. Mm-hmm. After all, they spent all night last night trying to figure out if Kim's a human or not. Yeah. Yep, still human. Yep. Yeah. So anyway, we'll see. Right. This is a developing story, as they call it in the news world, right, Sunny? A developing story. Right. More information as the story develops, and that's what they usually say. So I'm not counting on it really, but we'll see. I mean, there are good people in the world. There's good people in the FBI. There's good people in, not everybody is horrible. Not everybody got into these positions with the police or otherwise, or all the way up the food chain with bad intent.
Right. And like you said earlier, a lot of people think that this, they're doing something because they're a patriot. They're trying to help their country, and, they just don't understand the hierarchy of all of it. So,
and they want to protect American freedoms, or insert country name here, German freedoms, or Iraqi freedoms, or whatever, that they're trying to defend what they believe is right. They want to defend the people. They want to stop people from bombing their countries. It's been decades, it's over, that kind of thing. And I get that. Will we have those kind of people come forward? Yeah, I do think so, as they start to realize that, their fearless leaders and alleged white hats and black hats are down in Florida fighting over cocaine right now so they can get a few $1 million and buy a Bentley or something.
Jeez.
I know. God bless America, right?
Yeah. Only in America. Not only in America, only in
Someone's
this world.
got to.
Only on Earth.
I know. Only on Earth. That's right. What's so funny is that because we are such a nexus planet, everybody watches what's going on here. And I feel like they must be watching us like we watch like Real Housewives of whatever Georgia or whatever state they're in now. I have no idea. Orange County. I don't know. I don't watch that stuff. But, we watch these reality shows and we see people living in the house or that are stuck in the house or stuck on the island or whatever shows are out there now. And we're like, watching these people's lives allegedly unfold. Of course, a lot of that's scripted. And we're watching they're probably on the outside watching the, Earth, right?
The same way. Like, what are they doing?
The real humans of Earth.
To them?
Yeah. Hey, we know that one. She's actually from here. She should know better than that. Come on now, really?
Exactly.
She's here representing our people from this planet, or he's here,
Oh, no.
In the great game of Earth. What are they doing? Pull up, pull up.
I know.
I know. And you know what? It is an exciting show. I mean, it definitely has been quite a ride for the last couple of years as we near the end here.
Yeah.
I've learned a tremendous amount, throughout the process and from source, and I'm forever grateful for that. And I'm happy about the journey. Not every day. Today was 2 hours and about 25 minutes of sleep. So not every day, but most days.
Right.
That's why God invented caffeine and coffee beans and
to help you through those days.
Yeah, to help us through those days. Exactly. Hydrate, oxygenated water, all the things. But we'll get through it, always do.
Of course we will.
So that's about it for today and the exciting great game of Earth that, is being watched all over the universe. So if you never thought that you were in a fishbowl before and, you were worried about Echelon or Skynet, you do have probably a few thousand, if not more, alien races pulling for you. So pull up, guys.
Pull up. All right. Well, it's good to hang out with you today and get all that information, Ken. Thanks for being with us, and hopefully we'll see you again on Friday.
Good to see you.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Miss Sunny.
You're welcome.
Want to share news from UNN? Help us change the face of social media and use it for good. Connect with us through our